I love to travel. So far, I've visited 70 countries, and hopefully this isn't the end of it. I inherited the travel bug from my parents. One of my earliest childhood memories is when I was about 3 years old, getting extremely impatient that my family would finally get packed and ready and take off to Spain, where we spend our summer holidays. Okay, who of you is under the age of 40? Okay, is there anybody over 40? Well, guys, let me tell you, back then in the 70s, the dark ages of the motor car, making a holiday trip by car was a different story. No air condition, no navigation system, and worst of all, no in-car entertainment to keep the kids busy. There was just one central entertainment unit, and that was a cassette player, controlled by Mum. She closely guarded a small selection of 3 cassettes, one containing some sort of German folk music, and the 2 others contained elevator music, causing a serious trauma for my tender young ears. In case you were wondering, all is well. It didn't put me off from traveling. I truly believe that traveling is the best education possible. The organizers of today's TEDx asked me, Anja, what would you like to see in the future? My answer is, get off your butt, search for new experiences. A whole lot that is changing out there can't be seen from where you are sitting. One of the countries I'm particularly fascinated with is India. During my travels in India, I learned a couple of things. First of all, only eat fruit that you can peel. Important. Secondly, although Hinduism has or knows like thousands of gods and goddesses, there are 3 principal ones: Vishnu, Shiva, Brahma. Vishnu, the preserver; Shiva, the destroyer; Brahma, the creator. This troika is called Trimurti. Trimurti describes just about all you need to know about business and life. Why? Well, like Vishnu, we need to preserve what good is already there. Like Shiva, we need to selectively forget the past. And like Brahma, we need to create the new. So it's never one or the other. We have to keep all 3 things in balance. So let's start with the first principle, the principle of preservation, as represented by Vishnu. Very good. Okay, a lot of people confuse preservation with clinging to the past. They try to hold on to the tried and tested and refuse to change. But here's the thing. You can shout, "No change!" as loud as you want. The change is going to happen with or without you. So what we need to understand is that preservation is not the absence of change. Rather, preservation is the ability to maintain our balance in a changing world. Which brings us to the next principle. The principle of change, as represented by Shiva. Very good. Right. So, this year, we are celebrating an important historical event in Germany. It's 500 years of... Anybody? Not the internet. That's not right. So, what is it? 500 years of? Yes! Reformation anniversary. Martin Luther. It's been 5 centuries since Martin Luther proclaimed his 95 Theses and thereby changed the course of Western history. what was the reaction of the Catholic Church? Well, they hated him. This crazy German monk, what was he thinking? They accused him of being a heretic. A heretic is somebody who teaches or believes something that goes against official beliefs. And no surprise, Luther's ideas were extremely revolutionary and they challenged the power of the Catholic Church. No surprise that Pope Leo wasn't a member of Martin's fan club. Martin Luther teaches us something very, very important. Heretics, not prophets, create revolutions. Dare to be a heretic. Dare to challenge beliefs. Dare to question seemingly irrefutable laws. Sounds like a right thing to do, but there's a problem. The problem is that very often we are not aware that these beliefs exist. We accept them, we don't challenge them. Let me give you an example. An example from the world of business. Nearly every hotel on this planet follows the same dogma. No matter when you check in, by 12 noon the next day, you have to check out. That's the rule in the hotel industry. A while ago, I spoke about this with a hotel manager, and I asked him, why is it? Why is it that somebody who checks in at 9 in the evening has to check out at the same time as somebody who checks in at 2 or 3 in the afternoon? I think that's unfair. So why don't you challenge this dogma and do things differently? And then I suggested, why don't you rent rooms by the hour? No. Not what some of you are thinking right now. That's a different business model. No, that was not my suggestion. What I meant is, why don't you rent rooms for exactly 24 hours? Meaning, somebody who checks in at 9 in the evening can keep his room until 9 of the next day, whereas somebody who checks in at 2 in the afternoon leaves the room at 2 the next day. It's very transparent, it's fair, plus it creates a lot of value for the guest. The more excitedly I argued in favor of my newfound idea, the more the attitude of the hotel manager changed. He stood in front of me like this. Arms crossed, wrinkled forehead, and a dismissive look in his eyes. He said, "You know what your problem is? You don't understand the rules of the hotel industry. The question is this a problem or a blessing? I vote for the latter." The thing is, the longer you work in a certain field, the more blind you become. In that sense, seemingly irrefutable laws and blind beliefs are our greatest enemies in business as in life. Phrases like, "we've always done it that way," "that's the way it works," they are very good hints that you might be following a belief that is not necessarily correct. So that means that we need to challenge these beliefs, because the danger is that they turn into intellectual straitjackets. So challenge them and question them. That's the first order of the day. That's why I love this photo so much. It's great, isn't it? It represents a certain philosophy about life that I subscribe to. So far we have talked about preservation, we have talked about challenging old beliefs and change. And that leaves us with the third principle, the principle of creation, as represented by Brahma. Our world is changing faster than ever before. And that means that we have to step out of our comfort zone and try new things. You cannot know if something works until you've tried it. Here are 3 recommendations for you. First of all, experiment vigorously. If you want to increase the number of goals scored, you have to increase the number of experiments and thus accept more setbacks. This gentleman is James Dyson. He's the inventor of the backless vacuum cleaner. Before he was able to bring the first backless vacuum cleaner on the market, he worked on 5,127 prototypes. Again, 5,127 experiments. Honestly, most of us would have given up after 30 or 40 experiments. And this guy goes on and on and on for years until he gets it right. This gentleman is Anja Förster. He's a German inventor and entrepreneur. Among other things, he invented the plastic wall plug. That's the thing he's holding in his hands. Yeah, obviously not the regular household size unless you have very thick walls. So, in his long life, Anja Förster secured 1,136 patents. 1,136 patents. That is world class. It puts him on the same level as Thomas Edison. So, here's a question for you. What do you think? Were all his patents as successful as the plastic wall plug? No, of course not. Of course not. But that didn't keep him from experimenting and trying new things all the time. Or take Albert Einstein. He wrote 240 scientific papers. Pablo Picasso created 20,000 pieces of art. Not all of them as famous as Guernica or Les Demoiselles. But that didn't keep him from trying new things all the time and experimenting vigorously. So what these people tell us is, if you want to increase the number of goals scored, you have to experiment more and thus accept more setbacks. Here's my second recommendation. Fail faster to succeed sooner. It sounds crazy, but it is true. You have to make all the stupid mistakes early on in the process and then learn from them as fast as possible and move on. Former race car driver Mario Andretti famously said, "If everything seems under control, you're just not going fast enough." So true. Here's my third recommendation. Be daring, be bold. Before I started my graduate studies in the US, I traveled the United States for 6 months. It was awesome. I loved it. Fast forward 2 years. I've just completed my master's degree and I'm sitting down having my first interview. The interviewer reads through my resume and suddenly there's a frown on his face. And I'm thinking, oh my, what is it? He looks up from reading and says, "There's a gap in your interview, in your resume." I draw myself up and say with quiet pride, "Yes, I know. I gave myself the best education I could give myself." "Indeed? What did you do?" "Oh, I traveled extensively." "I see." Reading upside down, I see him write, "Gap, no relevant experience." Initially, I was frustrated. I felt rejected. And then I stumbled upon a quote from Charles Handy. He's an Irish management philosopher, great guy. And he says, if all your experiments with life turn out well, you probably haven't pushed yourself far enough. So true. Be daring, be bold, and don't let the bozos get you down. So, best of luck and Godspeed. Thank you.